This is a very brief lecture on portrait lighting. Occasionally you're asked to take a picture of somebody. Very often this will be indoors. Very often they just need a formal portrait for some reason, illustrate a brochure, even something as simple as a passport. And you can do them a real favor if you actually know what you're doing ahead of time. If you don't know what you're doing ahead of time, here's what you get. Now that's a real lighting disaster, okay? Half of her face is in the shadow. So how can we fix this? Well, one way you can fix it is you can do what's called short portrait lighting. This is where you turn and tilt your face towards the light so that the light side of the face is it's really her short side from her nose to the left here. That's the short side of her face that's facing the light, and the broad side of her face has shadow on it. This also begins to create some other shadows from her nose, which are kind of attractive. So this is a very simple way to take a bad situation and turn it better. The light in this case is coming pretty much from her left, and maybe just a little bit above her. So that could be like a table lamp or a window could produce this kind of a lighting. So that's a good way to salvage a picture by going for short portrait lighting. Now look at this. This is overhead lighting, like a light bulb overhead, and it's not really very pleasing. If you look at her nose, see how the shadow under her nose lengthens her nose, okay? Why would you have a big black shadow there anyhow? That's not attractive. And then look under her chin, that's very dark, and that kind of gives her a big throaty chin. That's not very pleasing, okay? So how can we fix that? That's not very hard. What you do is you make a reflector. You can use, white piece of notebook paper, a piece of light cardboard sitting around the room or the office, whatever, and you can get somebody to hold that under her chin, and that's going to light up her chin, light up the bottom of her nose a little bit. So even though overhead lighting is not the best, this is a way, once you zoom in and take the actual portrait so that you don't see the reflector, you can get a pretty nice shot. The best solution for any kind of lighting is what's called Rembrandt lighting. And this comes from the Renaissance painter Rembrandt, of course. He did many, many portraits. And I'm going to show you in a moment what it is. But basically, the head is tilted. If you look at this picture, you're looking down at the top of the head, and you're looking down at two reflectors, and you can see the camera over here on the left. And basically, there's a bright light behind the camera shining on the person's face, and then you have a softer light facing over this direction, and I'm going to show you in a minute what this is like. And I'm going to show you how to recreate it with just one light, okay? So here we are. This is the basic element of Rembrandt lighting. Once again, it's the short portrait, okay? You have the short side of her face pointing towards the light. You have the broad side in the shadow. And to be technical, you have the shadow from her nose touching the shadow on her cheek. Now this picture is certainly a lot more attractive than the original picture, the lighting disaster that I showed you, but it's not perfect yet, okay? That's because it's taken with just one light. Now watch. What we do is we hold a reflector up against the far side from the light, okay, up against the side of her face that's mostly in shadow, and we're starting to soften the shadows on her face. So we're going to get a much more pleasing picture. We don't want so much shadow, okay? We want some shadow, because that creates interesting lines, but we don't want blackness. Okay, so what we have is we have the lighting disaster, the before picture. That's a real disaster. The light's coming from just one side. We have just one light. Everything else is in deep shadow. Here we have still one light, okay? Top left-hand corner, though, the light's coming a little bit from the top and from the side. Here's the shadow on her nose. We've used a reflector to fill in some shadow here. Now we have a very nice, simple portrait made with one light and one reflector. You've not had to spend any money or carry in any special lighting. Well, thank you very much for attending this short lecture.